Welcome back everybody to Tony's Top Tips Workshop. This is just a follow-on video from some questions that's been asked on my channel and social media. I put the last video I did was on the MPG controller for moving the machine around. Now people's asked me, does it really make it easy, and what happens if you get a power out, which some people's had. They've been in a program and they've actually had a power out. Well, you could never get back to the exact G-code spot of where your machine failed, but what you can do, and you can do with the offline controller, but it's a lot easier when you've got both the MPG and the offline controller, and that is you get your coordinates back for where you started. Okay, I'm going to run it through you. I'm going to knock the power off and I'll show you exactly how to get back to the same spot. You would have to run the program again, but it would, hopefully, it's your best chance, hopefully it will pick up exactly to the point. If it's been cut in an hour, so you're going to have to, unfortunately, you're going to have to run through that hour again. There's nothing you can do, and just don't. But this is the only way. It's worked for me. I've had a couple of power outages. There's been a mains cable near us that's powered out, and I was actually running the machine, and I thought, oh, no, that's charming. Fortunately, it only been running half an hour, and I was doing a lithophane for a friend of mine, and I thought, yeah, I'm going to waste the plastic that I was doing it on. So I thought, no, I'll take it back to 00 and then both X and Y, and then I'll start the machine again. And sure enough, it went through the whole half an hour again and then picked up exactly where it left off. I mean, I'm not an expert in how to find which G code. You'd have to find the exact G code. No, it's just not worth it. You're best just getting it back to 00. That's the point of start on your job, not home, on your job. Once you've got it there and you've zeroed it off, then this is what you need to do. So what I'll do is I'll take you over to the machine and then I'll show you what I've got set up. It's a simple procedure really, and you've got to remember is that at any given time, it don't have to be a power outage. It could be the software program that's froze the computer. It could be any number of things, but as long as you can pick that starting point up exactly, then you stand a good chance of running the program again and it picking up where it left off. This is why I like using offline controller. The offline controller it has not failed on me. And the other thing that I do, and I've passed, if I've got a complicated engraving to do, say for instance you've got letters round a shield and you've got some work on the shield, and then you might have it might be a 3D shield, that, you know, and then you've other things around it. You could, if you, for instance, you can use the same cutter to do all the job, then that job can become a problem in itself if you have a power outage. So what I would normally do is when I'm in Aspire, I actually split that image up, even if it was even if it was the same cut for the whole job. I would split it up into sections that I wanted and do a toolpath for each one of those sections that I've split it up into. I then load it onto my chip. I know which sections are which, and then I would load it onto the offline controller, and then I'd run number 1. So it would go back to 0 once it's finished that pattern, and then I would run the second toolpath. Now if for instance and the third, and then until the job's completed. But if I had a power outage on number 1, then I can go back, pick the 00 up, and then run that number 1 again. However, so I might have only that number 1 program, that toolpath might only been running about 20 minutes, half an hour. So you pick that up, it'll start off where you left off, where it powered out, and then continue that. You load the other toolpath, and then it's not a colour change, but it doesn't make any difference how you go back to 00, then run the second toolpath and then the third toolpath. But if however you had that as one program, okay, then you have a power outage, say 20 minutes from end, and you've been running 3 hours, you've 3 hours to sit. But when you split the toolpaths down into different sections, different ones, then if my number 2 toolpath had failed, then I only have to do that. I don't have to go right through number 1 again. Say with number 3, if it fails 5 minutes from the end and number 3 toolpath is an hour, then I'll only have to sit through that again, because I go back to 00. 1 and 2, I don't have to go through that again. I just hope it ain't confusing for you. But anyway, I'll take you over to the machine. It's just the way I do it. It's not something that I've learnt from anybody else. It's just the way I do things, because on my main machine it's very good at what it does, and my other 4040 CNC, they're very good at what they do. But I had a lithophane running on the 4040, and it had been running, it was quite a big one, it had been running 6 hours, 6.5 hours. Okay, now I could have split that lithophane up, because it had 2 different parts, separate. It had a main photo and then it had 2 separate ones. Now I could have split that up into 3 toolpaths, and I didn't. I thought I'd be right, and the machine stopped. I thought, oh no, right through nearly the end of the first one, which had been on quite a while, and I thought, blinking, I'm going to have to sit through this again. I got the 00 back, that wasn't a problem, but I had to run through 6 hours again, and it picked up. You couldn't tell where it had picked up, but it picked up back where it left off, and the job completed. And I just thought, if I'd have split that up into 3 parts, toolpaths, then it'd have been easy for me, because it you know, I wouldn't have had to have sat through, and I could have split it up into 3, so I wouldn't have sat through 1 and 2, and 1 was the longest one because it was bigger. I could have just sat through the third one. But anyway, enough. I'll take you over to the machine and I'll show you what I mean. Right, here we are at the machine. Just so you can see what I'm on about is, I've got the MPG controller here, and I've got the offline controller here. Okay, so I've switched the machine on, and obviously that's what you'll see when it comes on. Okay, now what I'm going to do is power out again. Okay, power back on, let it initialize, go to prepare. Okay, and you need to home the machine, because it might have been, you might have moved it back, so it is in home position, but I'm just showing you what to do. Okay, home the machine. Right, that's homed. Now on the offline controller, you'll see the start your project. Go back into that. Okay, and you'll see there that it's in home position, and it always comes up with 231 and 12.749. okay, X and Y. Doesn't matter about your Z, because I've showed you that in previous videos, when you can move it away from the start position, you 0 0, and then obviously you can just put it back on and zero it off with the probe. Okay, I have a 50mm block for that, which I showed you before. Right, that's the 50mm block, by the way, is if you're using the rotary axis. You'll just zero it off with the touch probe on top of your job. Okay, right, so what we do now is we go down to that and we zero that. Okay, this is so that you pick up the coordinates that you need to get from the start in order to get your 0 0 back, or get your cutter into the exact same position if you have a power outage or you want to change a cutter. So I'll just show you that 0 0. Okay, now what we're going to do is, as you can see, I have there a cross, and I'm going to move my cutter till it's over that cross. Okay, that's my fictitious job starting position. Okay, so with the offline controller and the MPG, you can see there that I'm going to set this to X. Okay, so now I'm going to move this X axis over to roughly where it wants to be. You see it moving. Roughly where it needs to be. Then it's a bit difficult to do it with one hand, but never mind. So there, I'll change that then to Y. Okay, and I'm always going in plus direction, remember. So I'm going to just see where we are. And you can see that it's so easy with this controller, it really is. I'm going to set that, put it to Z, because I need the Z to come down the cutter so I can get the centre of that for my starting point. Okay, so that's a blank canvas, is that? It's not got these on, it's a blank canvas. That's my starting point. Okay, so I put that onto Z. What we do now is move the Z axis down. Okay, now remember this will be going down, so it's minus. Okay, that's near enough. Right, well, we're a little bit off the cross, aren't we? So I'll go back onto the X axis and I'm going to move the X axis. Okay, right, as you can see, that is set up slap bang in the middle of the starting point. That's my starting point now. Okay, now what you would do normally if you're running the job, you would 0 0 that. Okay, so you 0 0 X and Y. Okay, just as before, this is not for a power outage at the moment. This is if you're going to do a tool change or something like that. So if I want to send go to home for some reason, or change a cutter and zero off the, what is it again, I would go back into, I will go back into the other page, and you go down to home and press home. Okay, this will now go to home. This is just showing it to home, but if I'd have finished a toolpath and wanted to do a cutter change, it would obviously go back to that starting point 0, 0. As you well know, those that are using Sainsmart, it goes back to 0, 0. So I would just move it away from the start point, change the cutter, touch off, and then I would pick the coordinates up, which is 0, 0, back again. So that's gone back to home position. Right, if we look at on the start page again, Start Your Pro, you look 106 700, that's X, and Y is 178 200. Okay, so if you remember, when I first started this machine, I took it to the starting point. When I zeroed off, those coordinates there were what the cutter originally was from. Okay, so if you get a power outage, you lose your 0, 0. So those figures there, 106 700 and 178 200 for X and Y, write down on a piece of paper, because they'll come into play. Okay, now if I've done a cutter change or I wanted to do something there, then I need to go back to that starting point. Okay, so remember they were zeroed, so I'm going to take Y axis, it's on Y now, is this on the MPG controller. It's so simple with this, it really is. And what you do is, if you watch the figures, I will now take Y back to 0, 0. Oh, it's so simple. Oh, gone past a bit. 0, 0. Okay, and then I would move back the X-axis, and if you remember, that needs 0, 0 now. So we'll look. Oh, 0, 0. As you can see, there we are. Back to 0, 0. So if I run a program again, a lot of people, what I tend to do as well is, once I've got it there, I just zero it again. Okay, just to make sure, but it is zeroed. So remember those coordinates. Now normally what I would do is, when I first move it to my job start position, which is there, what I would do is I would jot down those coordinates, the X and Y coordinates, which you saw, which picked back up again when I sent it to home. Okay, so this is now when we get a power outage. Alright, so we're working away, the machine's somewhere on the table, okay, and you need to get that starting point back again. Now it wouldn't pick up 0, 0, 0 because you lose them. Okay, so when I just watch this, so imagine that the cutter is somewhere into the program. Okay, power outage, put the power back on again. Okay, if you go to prepare and over to here, you'll see that it's got those figures at 231 and 121.749 for the X and Y. Okay, but it stopped in the bit, so that's no good to us. So what we do is, let's go back to the next page. We go to home, send it to home. If you've been an hour into it and it's a 3 hour, at least you've only the hour to do. It will go over cut ground, but at the end of the day This is the only way that you can get, when you're doing cutter changes and you're moving it away to get your cutter in place, and you're touching off, it's really good at picking your coordinates back up. Okay, so right, it's gone to home again, and if you go back to start there, you'll see it's still at 231 and 121.749. okay, so what we do is go to there, okay, and zero off. Okay, so we've zeroed off. Okay, and now what we're going to do is we're going to move, remember those coordinates, X and Y. X was 106.700 and Y 178.200. okay, so what I'm going to do is I'll move the Y axis first, and that's going to be down to 178.200. Keep your eye on the figures. There, 178.200. That's Y. Okay. Now we switch to the X. This is why this MPG controller is really good. Okay. Now, I've no doubt in the software program Candle you could probably pick up the coordinates, but I run all mine from the offline controller. I don't run it through software on the PC. Sometimes there's too many glitches. Right, so X, if you remember, was 106.700. okay, that's X. To 106.700. There we are. Okay, now I'll move it to Z, so I'll show you that it's actually back over the center. Okay, so I'm going to be moving Z down. Oh, center. Oh, there we go. Center. Center. Okay. So now we're back at 106.700 and 178.200. That's bang on where your initial job has started after you power off. Okay. So you would then, what I would do is zero those again, because you need to zero them, because that's what you're going to work from openly, that your machine's going to pick up when it goes back. So you now put the number 1 program in again, start it going, and it should pick up exactly, providing there's no glitches in your computer or what have you, it should pick up back where that left off. Okay, I hope everybody's clear on that. So obviously when you come to do a cutter change again, I want to touch off, but you might have you might be, like for instance, you might not be able to get your touch off probe back where your starting point is, you know, for whatever cutting. Most of the time that's it works, you can do it, because I normally set my job and my start point depending what it is, a bit away, so it enables you to touch off again with the probe. You can lift your Z up, touch off without moving in your X and Y, but it's not, when you're using the 4th axis, that's not practical. You can move it up out of the way, but you also have to move it away from your item on the 4th axis. That's where my block comes in, the 50mm block, because I know that's the centre of the 4th axis. So I would move my cutter away, so move it away from the job, change the cutter, touch off on this, and I would just move it back, which would be the Y axis in this case if I move it forward, and I would just move it back to the 0, 0, okay, because those figures would change. I'll show you. If I were on the 4th axis and I wanted to do a cutter change, you would move that way, move it away, okay, you would lift your Z axis up, obviously, put your touch off probe on top of your 50mm, which is exactly the centre line of your 4th axis, and then lift that up, change your cutter, touch off, and then you would literally move your, if you watch the figures, move your figures back to 0, 0. Okay, pretty simple, but you know, this is what you know, I've seen quite a number of people stuck on the CNCs and getting disheartened because things aren't going right, and I've always said, get used to moving your machine about, playing with the coordinates, getting those back, providing you have the offline controller. I don't know, I don't use Candle to do that, but I presume you could do that in Candle. I don't know, and type the figures in. I don't know. I use solely from the offline controllers. This is what this is about. And people are getting disheartened and leaving it and shelving the CNCs because things aren't going right. As I've said before you run a job with a cutter in, 0 off higher than what you want, just run the program and see what hiccups you get. With that, you don't even have to run it with the motor going, and just run it and see if it ends up back at your 0, 0. Because if it does, your job starting point, that means that the program's worked. Okay, as I say, I can't impress enough how this MPG controller for moving the machine about is so good at what it does. It's simple, but working them both together is really good for getting your coordinates back. Okay, so that's 0, 0 now. I can just run the program again. Right, we're back around now. I'm just hoping everybody's understood how to explain it. I'm not the best at people to explain things sometimes. I know what's right in my head, but getting it over in words. But it shows that even with, I get them power outages or my computer's frozen, but I always jog down those coordinates, start point, when I've zeroed off, and you can get back to it. Okay, I've just shown you, I've knocked the machine off, powered out, and it's through a job, and I've got that starting point back. Not the starting point where it finished, where the cutter stopped or the machine stopped, but the starting point of your job 0, 0. Okay, get back to that, you zero it off again and run that program again, and it'll go over cut ground, and you might hit it now and again, just, you know, a little bit of a touch where the cutter touches. That's unavoidable, but you'll get back to where you started. It's worked for me, it's worked several times now, and it just seems to be doing it when I do lithophanes. Other jobs that I do, it carving and that, it's, as I say, I split them into 3, 4, whatever I can. It just makes it easier. Saves time. If you have a power outage, you just run that one again. But anyway, that's this little video on the MPG controller, new from Sainsmart. It's on their website and it's for sale. About £50 odd I got it for. And the offline controller, both working together, hand in glove. Okay, right, that's the conclusion for my video. I'd just like to say, like, subscribe. It means you know, it makes a big difference to me. I answer everybody's comments, and I'm getting them now on social media as well, so but please, when you're working with these machines, because I watched a video the other night and a gentleman was operating his machine. It was on a clip, dangerous clip, and he put his hand near the cutter. Unfortunately, it was a smallish cutter. It was like a ball nose cutter, and it just clipped the side of his little finger, and it just made it, but he felt it and he moved it away. Always if you're going to use your vacuum cleaner there, you can put your nozzle near, no fingers please. You must remember, these machines, however small the motor is, will remove your digits. Okay, that's what you want at the end of the day. No injuries and all your digits, and safety glasses. Okay, can't impress it enough. Right, until next time, you be safe, be careful, and bye for now.